Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to your daily lighting critique. We have a couple video projects to go through. We have a 25-second animation that is being lit by Brenda. For those that don't know, for normal human beings that hear 25 seconds, you think that's not very long. But 25 seconds in animation land is a bit of an eternity. It's like, so you know, for 30 frames a second, I'm doing math quickly in my head. 30 frames a second, 25 seconds is 1,200. It's like 1,800 frames, right? Maybe I'm right. I hope I'm right on that. 1,800 frames is a lot of frames to render, especially when you have like different layers. Even if it takes like a minute a frame, that's still a heck of a lot of rendering to do. So it's an incredibly ambitious project. And then even from the animation side, like animating 25 seconds, 2 characters, this camera move, although one of the characters is meditating, so that chills them out a little bit. But this is actually 3 characters, if you can call the guy with the throwing star in his butt. So we'll start here with Brenda, and then we'll work over to Kat. We have a couple still images to go through as well. Oh, before I forget, out of the gate, a big thank you to Kat Loveland. She is our first collaborator on our TikTok account, and she posted a lovely video this morning of her plants outside and talking about translucency and the direction of light and position of light. Cool stuff. So if anybody else wants to collaborate on some social media stuff, like I said, we're looking from some student contributions to our TikTok account, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So message me if you are interested in that. This month's lighting challenge, we are working on, it'll probably be more like next month's, but we are working on getting it together now. There's some Maya bugs. We're working with Autodesk on it, but we made the decision that it was better to have a clean file that had everything in it for you all than give you something that was half finished only to update it later. So that was our thought process there. Okay, enough with announcements. Let's get into it. All right. So this is the original Play Blast. Here is the reference footage that Brenda shared with us. Really, really beautiful stuff. Like, I don't know who painted this, but this is just lovely. Brenda, if you did that, brilliant job. Did you do that?
Hello. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, I did that.
It's gorgeous. It's so, I'm like, just, that's it. You're done, man. That's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then, yeah, all 3 of these. So this is an interesting situation, right? With the animation, you saw it was like a woman who was fighting, and then she transitions into something much more serene. And what you're doing here is you're transitioning the lighting along with it. And I think that's so smart and so cool, because then it's allowing the audience to move along with that a little bit. But it also provides some real challenges of how you actually do that. Like, where do the transitions happen, and things like that. But like, beautiful color schemes here, and here. Like this pink, like this is very cool. This actually reminds me a lot of the opening sequence in Spies in Disguise. Had similar like pinky kind of lanterny light. A very blue sky, so a really, really cool color scheme. All right, let's take a look in. Actually, let's do your animation here first. So we've got this. Is this rendered on like 8s or 10s or something? Every 10th frame. Okay. Which is, by the way, for those that are trying to do something very long, this is an excellent way to do it, because it gives you some flexibility and allows you to see the full frame range, even if it is at a lower resolution. It allows you to see the full frame range and see how things play out. It's very cool. I'm just going to watch it through one more time, because your transition is it's pretty smooth. Like, it's really interesting how it happens. It's like you don't. How much of the lights, the colors of the lights and stuff changing, and how much of it are, because I guess we get away from the pink lights here. Is like your skylight the same throughout, or do you kind of ramp that up a little bit?
Yeah, there's there are like some lights that are on the first part of the animation, and then there's another light that gets added up as it comes here. Mm-hmm. So it's like.
So it's almost like you have 2 different sets set, like 2 different stages set up. Well, that's really cool. Okay, great. So seeing it play out in its entirety is really nice for the understanding of the transition. Now I just kind of want to look at the stills a little bit and talk about those. So let's start with this one at the beginning. So the one thing that I really like about the reference, let's just zoom in here, is just like the amount of glow around this and the kind of like you can see all of the influence around it. I think that we can see the influence around it, but what's actually being cast onto the wall is pretty saturated versus here that's a little bit less. And I think the saturation point on the light itself being brighter than what's being cast is important. And it's here too, but I think we should tone down a little bit the saturation of the light actually being thrown on there. Additionally, like we don't quite have the softness there yet of it. I think that adding some diffusion around this would be really good. I think that do you say like there's like a little bit of a haze just right around this? I think having that in the shot would be really good, and that's just a matter of the way I would do it. I would if you have a crypto mat of the lamps, I would grab that and then use a dilated road to make it bigger, and then make it like a glowy element that kind of sticks to the lights around that. Okay. So you erode it, you blur it, you get some of the color in there, and then you kind of screen it or add it over the top to kind of add just like a hazy glow around it.
Yeah.
And then let's see, it stinks. I have to keep zooming in. And then same thing here with this backdrop. Like you've got this lovely like atmospheric perspective fall off going on in there. It would be great to get that back in there as well, because like having the darkness back here, it kind of allows the whole space to feel a little bit smaller. But having that fog haze aerial perspective back there is really good.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and then last one. Yeah, she's standing out really nicely. I like that we're seeing him really well. Like there's no like struggle to see this guy, which I thought was really good in your play blast. She's coming up really well. Like this is a lot of lighting on her given the situation, but I think it actually plays out pretty well. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this before we move on to another part of the shot?
Go ahead.
One thing that I was thinking was the backlight, because it's like the color of the light on the background is very reddish, pinkish, and the backlight kind of looks very white. And on the reference, the it's all bluish backlit, which makes sense because of the blue background. Maybe add some pinkish on the backlight, maybe.
I actually think we should go. I think we should tone this down. Now that I'm looking at it, I think that should be more of the bluish, and then this could be more of the bluish. Because what happens is it's not the same as this light color, but it's close enough to it where it gets a little confusing. So I would like for the sky to be blue, contributing more blue to her. He's right. The back rim on her is looking a little bit white, and then the pink is just isolated to the lantern lights. So more like the reference, basically.
Yeah, sure.
That's a good call, Andre. Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add. So this scene reminds me very, very much of a video game called Muramasa: The Demon Blade, and it's by a company called Vanillaware, and they have a side-scrolling samurai 2D beat 'em up game. And like, not that you should look at that for reference to like change your art style, because I think you're in it. But if you can like, if there's anything you can take away from his art to like add to it, like. It's probably one of the most stunning video games I think I've ever seen.
What's it? I'm sorry. What's it called again? I'll just look.
It's called Muramasa, Muramasa. The Demon Blade.
Got it.
And I mean, again, I don't think your art style on this is matching, but like if you look at anything that looks like a side scroll, like that, like the sky work he does and everything is absolutely amazing. There's one. Let's see. If you go third row, last from the right, or no, even like that greenish one.
This
there,
like this?
Yeah, like rolling hills, like whatever this guy is doing, it's absolutely amazing. So like, if there's just anything, like if you can just look at like any shade, like there's any takeaway for your project, like the way he draws his light, like his rims, and like the way he has like shadows in some spots. I mean, it can't hurt to look at something like this.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of adding some scale to a large landscape and something similar like this. It's just even though this is 2D, you can see the aerial perspective. You can see the fog kind of raises as it goes off into the distance, and you can see the goboing of cloud lights. You can see like the pockets of light on the background that give much more shape to it. So that's really cool. And you could add that a little bit back here too. You could add like a little bit of variation in the light value on this. As well, so really cool stuff. That's great reference, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I think it's like the work you've painted is obviously like really really pretty. So it's like I don't deviate from that because you've put in all that hard work. But I'm just saying like most people don't know about that game, so I'm just throwing that out there as just something to look at. I don't know. It's
great.
Concept art based, if anything.
It's great, and that's really great feedback to provide in these because we all have unique perspectives and unique experiences, and like this stuff will this will trigger whatever you're looking at visually. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing that, Aaron.
Yep.
All right. Now we're in this section. So this section is actually kind of the trickiest part because actually we'll come back to this in a second. So we'll look at this one because this is so we've got the light coming in here, coming across. I think. Sorry, I'm just kind of like looking around. There's a lot of green value on here and then in the roof and stuff. I think we should actually take the green value off of the structure itself because I think that kind of cools it off and makes it look almost reptilian, like in that kind of a feeling. So I think like keeping this into that just that warm pinky orange magenta color palette I think would be really good. I love the shaping on this character. I think it's working out well. I think I think the shadow values here are working out really well. In just this position, because her head's kind of notched down, it would be nice to get a little more light on her face. But like because she's kind of moving around at this point, I'll allow the other frames to dictate that. I do. I think it's interesting because what you have going on here, and you can see it in the previous version, in the previous shot as well, is you've got these. Pretty extreme rim lights on the tall grass here, and you can kind of see a little bit of light kind of peeking over the top here. But then once we get down here, we kind of lose that. Like I think this stuff is a little bit extreme because we're not seeing it, and like we're not seeing the light kind of hit here too, right? Which would make sense for that. So I think you can tone that down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, and then
question.
Shoot.
Just looking at it, the stairs on the right, would they be that bright?
Yeah, that's a fair point because we've got light coming down. Yeah, it's almost like this roof wouldn't be illuminated on this side at all either, because the light would be coming from behind them. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's a really good point. So we might need to flip some of this because like if the light's coming in and hitting them here. Then it would be coming
Yeah, because the light on the
here.
face looks different than the light on the landscape. Because the face of especially the older character, you're getting a very strong rim on the one side of his face, but then it looks like the light's coming from the front when you look at the building and the landscape. So more the building than the landscape. So it's kind of weird. Yeah,
very good point. So I think we need to creep some light around the sides here. We'll need to see a little bit of rim like on these boxes, or at least hitting the top of the boxes, for it to kind of believably creep around there and get them. And it's totally like doable. And then we could even, I think if the light's coming from the back, like all this will still be in shadow. And then we can see a little bit of their shadows coming out this way. Yeah, and then this stuff would fall into darkness here. But I like the idea of it leading, like, because we'll be leading the light from here down this way to them, and then we'll get the payoff here, because all this stuff will be in shadow. I think that'll work out well. Because the lighting on the characters versus where the sun position is in this is pretty good. It's just, yeah, as Kat was saying, it's just everything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Sure.
Then.
I think, just a stylistic thought, since you're going from night to day, it might not even be a bad idea to have the stuff that's kind of on screen, right? So from like the stairs to the right, be a little bit more in shadow, like the sun's just come up, unless you're trying to make this look more like mid-morning. But if it's supposed to be like early morning dawn, maybe you'd have a little bit more shadow effect on the right hand side. So the characters are more in the pool of light. Like she's like she's basically leading the sun to the older character. Just a thought.
Yeah, interesting. All right, cool. All right, great. So that's good. That's good direction on this one. Okay, coming back here. So we've got light coming down this way. Same thing with the tall grasses there. So the water is tricky here, because I think that we need to see more. Like it might just be the individual frame again, but like I love seeing these reflections in here. I'd love to see more of that kind of in here a little bit, because like when I first saw this, I didn't think of this as water. It took me a second to identify it, just because there isn't a lot of reflection in there. There isn't a lot of chance for that watery distortion stuff. And then let's see this one. Yeah, and I think
Totally changed.
well, yeah, it's different. It's different than the reference here. I think, or the paint over, I should say. I think.
Yeah, it's because I tried to make like the 3 points, like changing the light for each part, but the changes looked really drastic. It looked like the light completely changed there and then completely changed again at the end. So I ended up just like leaving this one as a connection of both.
Okay.
And
that's totally legit. But I think we can do that, if we eliminate some of the pink from the sky, because that won't force us to put pink in here, and then we can bring in some of those bluer values, and then we can. Yeah. I think that would be the way to go with this one, and then getting some more reflection in there. Yeah, let's work with that for now. Let's see. Do you have any other questions, or does anybody have anything else?
I had a question because I was thinking about the eye-dings, but as the sun is supposed to be like behind them, I didn't add anything. But I don't know if that's
don't worry about it yet. We'll deal with that later. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of like a final tweak thing. Because like again, and her like we're not very close on the characters for right now. We'll probably like. Let's go back to the animation, because she's so frenetic throughout the shot, especially at the beginning here. Like we don't see her eyes here, a little bit there, but like she's moving so much that if we eventually add some depth of field on there, or I'm sorry, if we eventually add some motion blur on there, we won't even really see it until we get back in here. And then she's to the side. I think the only pose that you need to worry about it is like right there. Yeah, just as long as they look good at that angle, I think everything else will be okay. Cool. All right, great. All right, let's hop over into cats. Yeah, this is awesome, Brent. It's a really, really fun project. I can't believe you're tackling it. It's so impressive. All right, Kat. So lovely experimenting and learning Unreal. I think that, and we've got some caveats. There was no, we couldn't update to the latest animation, and there was difficulty in changing the color of the shaders, right?
Baking is not working in Blender, and I actually, somebody else who tried it, who does a lot of moving textures from Blender to Unreal, and he's like, yeah, it's not working. I'm like, okay, I'll just do what I can in Unreal. So this is probably going to be the coloring that it gets. I might tweak it a little bit more, but
like you said, this is just an opportunity. No, I mean, like, the goal of this project was to get something, because you're learning a new software, right? Like you're
right.
Yeah. So it's like, if a lot of this is finding the limitations, it's finding what works and what doesn't. Like the odds of this ended up being a demo or a real piece were low, and we probably won't get there, because like it's hard when you can't update to the latest animation and you can't change the color of textures. That makes it really difficult. But I think the one thing, so yeah, the colors are what they are, the animation is what it is. I think the biggest thing I would love to see you try and get a hold of is getting the shadow colors on the characters to get a little more definition, because there's just so many darks, especially now that we're getting into the first pass of the dinos textures. Is there any way to break up these yellow dots that are on him? like kind of give away the repeated pattern thing. Is there a way to break that up a little bit? Or
I'll see if I can do some texture painting or something, but yeah.
Yeah, because it just looks like he's covered in wallpaper. Because it's just the repeating pattern. I think the environment is looking good. I think we can probably go. It's feeling a little bit cool. I'm wondering if we can't warm up the light a little bit more in the sun, like make the sun a little bit warmer, just because like.
Okay.
But yeah, I like this shadow value in here looks really good. It's just that the darks that we're getting on the character. So I just wonder if there's more that we can do there. It's interesting that they're not both behaving the same way, and I'm wondering what's causing that.
I think some of it is the shadows on the right are just mostly plant shadows, and the shadows on the left, there's actually some shadows from the cliffs. So it might maybe because it's more of a solid shadow. I don't know.
It's more like it's a lot of like so these tree trunks and the rocks and everything are pretty middle gray standard shader, and they're not darker than the shader on the character, and the character is actually standing in direct sunlight over here. So I'm just surprised we're not seeing more bounce, especially when he's this
up to him. Okay.
Yeah, it's more about the sky color creeping in here, and then the bounce color coming off the surface onto there.
Yeah, that is weird. I'll have to see what I can do about
play
that. I
around
might
with it.
just have to put some more lights on there. I did put a little point light on the right where his tail is right now to brighten that up, because I know that was a big issue. So it should be a little brighter when he swings the monkey underneath that tree. But I can make it a little brighter if you want. Because it was really dark before.
Yeah,
so
it's better. It's just surprising in the key light areas that because it feels more like a shader thing than a light thing.
It might be
because anytime you see if it was all super dark in the shadows, I would say it's a light thing. Like if all the trees and everything were, but since those are looking pretty good, I think it probably has to do more with the shader than the light itself.
Okay, I'll figure out how to change the levels. Also, this animation, these characters don't have UVs on them.
Oh,
that's another thing.
Oh yeah.
So
that's okay.
So I'll try to mess with the specularity and stuff and see if I can get them to bounce more light back.
Yeah. Yeah, and then.
Do you like the cut to the dinosaur that's a little earlier? Do you think that helps a bit?
I think it helps. Let's see.
Because he swings up and then you kind of see the dino moving. So
yeah, I think that actually works. I think it actually works better. I'm not the best layout artist or cinematic guy.
Right.
But I think that.
But at least that way you're getting an idea of there's something down there that I'm aiming for. Right.
Yeah, exactly. There's an anticipation of. Because before it was just you didn't know.
It was just like
Well, you just didn't know. Yeah, you just didn't know if he was because he could just be a monkey just goofing around, and he fell onto a dinosaur, and that's terrifying. Or he was attacking a dinosaur. I didn't know what it was. So, it's cool. All right, great. Okay, so let's hop.
And I made that big rock that the monkey's jumping off of. I put some light on that too, so it's not so dark in the shadows at the opening scene.
Oh yeah.
So,
I have just two questions real quick for you, Kat. So I briefly looked into Unreal, and I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was saying that like when I put a light into my project, it doesn't look as beautiful as when some guy online just puts one light in his project. I'm like, there's some gap, and he said, my question to you is, are you using 5 or are you using some 4?
This is 4.27.
So
5 is still beta, right?
Well, 5 is in early access and it's free for anybody in the Epic launcher.
Yeah.
My only reason I suggest this is that the way it was described to me from this guy who I was talking to that's been using Unreal now for a couple of years is he was saying that for lighting and with the ray tracing and all the bouncing, he said 4 offers it. Just like McDonald's offers you a cheeseburger.
Right. Yeah, I'm not doing ray tracing on this one.
Okay.
On this.
Then he was 5 offers the global illumination, but it's a boutique burger from a nice restaurant. So he was saying that they both offer global illumination, but 5 just the code is so much better.
Yeah.
I would just be interested to see what the difference is if you just uploaded this into Unreal.
Yeah. You have to, when you just put a light into a scene, It works to a certain extent, but you need to tweak a lot of the settings, especially like with the sky capture or the sky atmosphere stuff and all that, so it actually gets the bounces correctly. You also, the thing with Unreal is you can tweak settings on every single light down to the nth degree, unlike maybe like Blender where you can put the light in and it works fairly well and you can do a little tweaking. With Unreal, it's like I can go in and every single light, I can completely change all the shadows and everything and the length of the shadow and how dark the shadow is and stuff like that. So just putting the light in there, it's like a basic sort of, it's like, well, here's a light. And then it's like, well, what do you do with it? So it does tend to require a lot more. The reason I'm not doing ray tracing on this one is the rural Australia environment. It says when you do it that it doesn't work well with ray tracing. So I just turned it off.
It's because of the trees. There are some surfaces. There's some
I think
surfaces
so.
ray tracing bad.
But I mean, it looks good for without ray tracing, and you can kind of mimic ray tracing using some other stuff. But you really kind of have to go in and tweak. There's just like everything is tweakable to the nth degree, which is what I'm finding out. So it's a lot more everything, because I think it's a game engine, and they wanted everything to be, well, how is it affecting the light as a character moves through it in a game? Everything is, you have to go in and tweak settings on pretty much everything. So that's what I'm finding. And I think with 5, they're making it more kind of plug and play because of what they're doing it. But this is 4.27, so this is the newest version of Unreal.
So that was my second question. What graphics card are you using then? Because
I've got an RTX 2060, I think, or something. I've got a new one.
Okay, because we opened some scenes with GTX 1660s, and it just didn't look great, and so we're like, well...
check your level of details, your LODs, because a lot of times when you open scenes, it might be opening on a low level of detail, and you have to go into the settings and crank up the level of detail. Because when I first opened the scene, it looked crappy, and then I went through and started messing with the settings, and I got the LODs up to this. So it has different level of details to try to help people who have maybe not such great graphics cards. So you have to go into like all the objects and change the LODs to be the higher setting.
Okay, because that's what I was thinking. It's like...
Yep.
I don't want the answer to be throw money at it. Like, I want the
No,
answer
it's not
to
throw
be
money at it. It's bury yourself in settings. That's the answer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry, guys.
And then throw money at it.
Yeah, I mean, we did find some RTX cards like at a, what I would say, reasonable scalper price, and we threw money at the situation. But I'm like, well, I'll never pay those cards if like this doesn't land me a job somewhere. So I would rather return the card and get nice results with what I have.
Yeah, with the computer I'm on is an Alienware Aurora R11. With I went and looked at Maya to see what cards Maya needed, so I got a higher end card. Sure. Not like super high, but like a decent card. So
all right,
that's what I did.
Good stuff, guys. Okay, cool.
Sorry,
No, it's fine.
Lecture of
that's
Unreal.
No, I was just like, I'm gonna sit back and just listen and learn. That was great. All right, we've got let's see, we've got Kelvin and we've got Justin. So we've got both of you guys here. We'll do alphabetical first. We'll start with Justin. So really beautiful stuff with the cabin scene. The biggest thing that I saw out of the gate was just the saturation is a little strong. I do want to pull back on the saturation levels a little bit, because then we can start to kind of get into these softer values a little bit more. And I think that is a little bit more in the realm of what we were looking for in these references. But I do love, again, the warm and cool mix. Got the light coming in there. I think like really beautiful stuff, like the shaping that you're getting here. There's a haze on this far mountain that's not here on this nearer mountain that gives it some more depth. You've got the rim light happening on the trees back there. You've got the house illuminated and kind of spilling light into the foreground here. I think that's all looking good. The one, and I've given this note on most of these submissions, is just to throw some geometry, some cubes, whatever. Throw some stuff inside the house to help break up the shadows a little bit, because that'll give a feeling of more like life inside the house than just like pure light in the windows. There's some noise issues in the foreground, especially in the ice, that you may want to look into before we go final. But like I said, I love the light coming out and spilling onto these trees. It would be nice if you want. You can play around with this and see if you like it. I do like to sometimes pretend that there's windows, or maybe there are windows on the back side of this that'll throw some light onto these trees, and maybe on the back of the house that'll throw some light back over there as well. But I think it's really, I think all in all it's looking really pretty. The biggest thing is just watching out for the saturation point. And I do like that this is like the depth of field looks good. These darker values in the foreground look good. I think it's all coming together really nicely. Do you have any questions, Justin?
No, that works perfect. Thanks, Mike.
No problem. Does anybody else have any? Oh, and then the other thing too, I guess putting some warmth on it. It's just, let me go back to what we had before. It's okay, I guess. I'm looking at these, the snow on these trees back here, and sometimes they can get like kind of high contrast and look like kind of blobs almost. So just watch out for that and make sure that the darker values are staying up a little bit. And so it's kind of, because a cluster of snow can end up looking like a dirty blob of goo pretty quickly if you just don't watch, if you're not careful with the darker values. So it's good, but your value in this area is really perfect, because it's like you totally get the feeling that this snow is in the shadow without it getting too dark, which is really a really lovely balance. Watch out too, you may want to lift, let's see you may need to lift the shader value on the wood on the cabin a little bit. That's feeling a little bit dark too, so you may just want to like pump up the shader value a little bit so it gets a little more light. Cool. All right, great. All right, Kelvin, we've got your previous version here. Put this over top. And update. So we've pulled back on some of the fog coming in. I think it looks really well. We've isolated to the one side. We've got some rim light going on the window and on the telescope. That's cool. I like those little specular hits in the foreground as well.
Just added a little bit of blur to the backplate and some depth of field in the foreground.
Yeah, that's great. They're really, like, it's subtle, but it really, really makes a big difference. So, biggest thought is that inside the room, and I know that we've pulled back the haze, there's still something that makes the shadows feel like a little bit lifted and not quite. Like I think we can get a little bit more contrast in them. Let me just see. So like just looking, I think we could go a little bit more into, like in terms of the dark points, a little bit more like this, and then pull back the saturation a little bit because that always set up a little bit. And this around the edge there, allow this to come in. And so it's just about getting a little bit more of the dark value back into the table, just because it is pretty close to the camera. We're only in a room that's maybe 20 feet deep at the most, and the idea that there would be like, if we're further back from something, there's the opportunity for more haze to kind of occupy it. But when we're in such a tighter space, it does feel like we want to make sure to maintain some of those darker values back there.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then, yeah, no, it's
In this attic, there might be like a little bit of, I don't know, dust or something.
yeah, no, I totally get it. It's, you know what it is? It's just that it's a little bit too uniform, and like if we isolated it down to like certain areas, it would be good. Or just like it would kind of fade off as we go up or something. It's just that it's kind of happening kind of uniformly across it. The other thing that I'm doing here is just brightening the amount of light that's coming in through the door. I think you can still push that just a little bit stronger. I love that you've eliminated that bright spot on the ground, which makes a big difference. And
Yeah, so for the animation, I just took that out by selecting it with the roto. So just for the animation, I guess I would just animate that roto. It's
yeah.
hard to complicate.
Yeah, you could. That would be the easiest way to do it. Especially since it's just like a consistent, like you talked about, just adding a slow little camera move to it. I think that would be easiest. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? What are you guys thinking?
I
Yeah.
guess I'm just trying to think of how I would do this, because I've got obviously separate passes for each light for this still, but for the animation, I guess I could just, since I'm cured, it seems like to achieve that look, I would cut the volume completely for the door light. I guess I would just light it out from the volume.
Yeah, just make it come in from the volume on the screen left side, and I wouldn't worry about it from the door. And like, you know, if you want, this was something else that we would do with an animated shot, is you already have it for one frame, so just leave it in for that one frame, and then when we do get the first test of the animation in, we can look at that. You know, we would do things like, let me pull this back up here real quick. If we were doing something where, you know, like the first, let's say this is the first frame of the shot that we were looking at in rounds, you'd say in the first frame, you'll see I actually added some more volumetric on the left-hand side. And then after watching it a couple of times, the art director would go back and be like, okay. And you just kind of, well, it's kind of bad because you don't really see much movement here, but you'd kind of A-B it. You'd go back and forth like this, and then you would be like, okay, yeah, no, I like a little bit more of the volumetric, so let's keep that in. So the idea is that you would, just for rounds, you would throw in a frame or two that was different, and you'd be like, oh, and in the next frame I made the mountain more saturated, and then you would like A-B that, and they'd be like, oh, I like this one better. So it's a way of doing it that allows you to view two different styles within one shot, and you could just like, we call it A/B. It's just flipping back and forth quickly between two images to compare, and it's a nice way of doing it. So I would say keep your volumetric in there for the first frame, or if this, I'm assuming this is the first frame of the animation. Keep it in for that, and then play it out with the rest where it turns off, and then we'll see which one we like better.
So I wonder how I would keep in like 50% of it.
You could, if it's a separate pass, you can just put in like a grade node that animates, and you could be like, you know, 100% the first frame, 50% for the second frame, and then nothing for the third.
So do you think I should, I wasn't planning on making 3 different passes of the animation, but do you think that's what I should do to make sure that I get all the tweaks correct?
What do you, so
Like a pass for the light, a pass for the moonlight, and a pass for the moonfill. I've got 3 lights. Right now that's
Yes.
what I've got. Still.
yeah, I think it would give you like maximum control over it in the end game. If you have the ability to, I've always liked breaking things up further, like you know, more I like having control in the comp. I don't like re-rendering. So I like to do, even if it takes more time to set up and it's a little more complicated to set up the comp, I like, because like once it's there, you're
That
like,
doesn't
yes,
bother me.
yeah,
It's just render time. It'll like triple the render time.
yeah. If you have time for it, then I would do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, like, having only one light on and 2 of them off actually does reduce the render time a little bit. So it's not fully the render time, but it's still not great.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Well, that makes sense.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot, Andre.
Is the moonlight a bit too strong on it? Because I'm seeing the highlight on the trunk here is stronger than the highlights on the lights coming through the door, and I was wondering if it's like maybe a little too strong, because it's like normally a light coming, you know, an inside light would overpower the moonlight by like, I don't know, 10 or something.
So you think it should be even stronger coming in through the door?
Yeah, or maybe a little bit weaker coming through the window.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's the beauty of rendering these out as the separate passes, is that we can be like, you know, once you get them all out, we're like, yeah, sure, let's give that a try. Like you can quickly iterate that. So I think, yeah, once we get the render passes out, Keldon, I think that would be a cool thing to try either internally, or if you like it and you're like, I want to compare this to what we have before, then send that over to him. We'll take a look.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, great point, Andre. That's nice. Yeah, because that's true. Because I was thinking about it as being sunlight that overpowers the interior light, but it's at night. It's totally the opposite. So, all right, cool. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. All right. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. All right. Be good.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one. Bye.